have been closely covering the details of an adult film star who was reportedly paid $130,000 to stay silent about an alleged affair or interlude of sorts with now President Donald Trump. From the New York Times, I'm joined by Megyn Twohey and Jim Rutenberg. Great to see you both. So, Slate will post this article later today from Jacob, who has spoken directly to Stormy Daniels. What he told us is that there were at least 4 interludes over the course of just under a year. And you heard Alana describe at least one of them with the underwear and the chasing. Whether that led to something more, we are not able to independently report that today. But you guys have been following this story. The Journal's been following the story. Can I start with this, Jim? Why should people care about this? Should they care?
I mean, I'll answer that as a journalist. We care because part of our job is who do politicians say they are when they run for president or any office? And if money was paid to hush up an affair, that's something we need to know as journalists. The American public has to decide whether it cares, and that's kind of, we can't be part of that. That's up to the public.
It's up to them. The Journal had reported the alleged affair with Karen, the former Playboy model, prior to the election. They had done some reporting on Stormy Daniels prior to the election. They had reported that the National Enquirer paid off Karen, paid her $150,000 prior to the election. But the payment to Stormy Daniels of $130,000 by the president's lawyer, Michael Cohen, is what is brand new, right?
That's right.
Okay.
That's exactly right.
So Michael Cohen is basically has been Trump's consigliere. I mean, for all this. I mean, he calls himself the fix-it guy.
Right.
And so do you believe there's a meaningful distinction between Michael Cohen paying Stormy Daniels $130,000 and Donald Trump paying her that money?
Well, it's interesting. You read the statement that Michael Cohen released, supposedly signed by Stormy Daniels last week, in which she said, listen, I was never paid any hush money by Donald Trump.
By Donald Trump.
And it's a very...
You have to pay attention, but that's a carefully worded
It's a carefully
phrase.
worded statement. And I think that the million-dollar question right now is the White House is not denying that there was a payment made to Stormy Daniels. Michael Cohen is not denying that. In fact, in the text message exchanges that Stormy Daniels had with Jacob Weisberg at Slate, he even asked her, like, was Michael Cohen the lawyer who did this settlement? And she said, yep. And so I think that the question here is, like, now is where did that money come from? If it wasn't Trump's money, where did that money come from? Who actually paid it? And what was the extent of his awareness of it?
Because do we have any reason to believe it wasn't? I mean, if it was either Michael Cohen's own money, which would be extraordinary, talk about taking a bullet, right? Or it may have been Trump's money, or who else's money could it have been?
I mean, that reporting has to continue because how money gets spent in campaigns to affect a politician's image. We have laws, we have regulations about that. So that's a question that really needs to be answered.
Mm-hmm. That infamous dossier, the Russian dossier that made all that news, they had some guy, Christopher Steele, and he did research and so on. Trump's denied that thing is real at all. But that thing suggested that Donald Trump engaged in unorthodox sexual behavior followed by silencing. It also alleged that he participated in sex parties, all of which he adamantly, vehemently denied. What we heard today from Alana would tend to undermine the notion that he's never attended a sex party or that he wouldn't attend a party along those lines. But there's a question about how big this is. I mean, do we have reason to believe this is it? This is the universe?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I don't think you can make a leap from one particular encounter to confirming something in a dossier in which many of the things in that dossier have not been proven yet, a year later after it was released. But I do think that there are questions now. We're looking at 2 cases in which women have, reportedly received hush money to basically not go public with their claims of a sexual encounter or relationship with Donald Trump. And I think that it really does raise important questions about whether this was part of a larger pattern in which Donald Trump or his affiliates paid money.
Or his backers, like the National Enquirer. I mean, this woman's been paid $150,000, reportedly, for 3 articles. And the National Enquirer, for some reason, didn't have any interest in printing her actual alleged allegation about an affair with Donald Trump. I mean, David Pecker, who owns American Media Institute, is very good friends with Donald Trump.
Very good friends. I have to credit our competitors at the Journal. They wrote that story before Election Day in 2016. very late in the campaign. It didn't seem to kind of get the attention that now it's getting. But AMI, American Media Inc., was very involved in paying this money. The story never gets told. The pattern's pretty clear.
Final thought, you've been covering the Me Too movement aggressively. Strong denials from Stormy Daniels that she had a relationship with Donald Trump. It wouldn't be the first time we've seen, it's not, you know, the American public does not know one way or the other, but it wouldn't be the first time we've seen somebody involved in a situation like this deny on the record that anything happened, only for us to find out later it did.
Right. Well, I think one of the things that's happened in the recent months with the Me Too movement is a lot of attention paid to, there's a new spotlight on these private settlement agreements, out-of-court settlements in which women can be paid money by whether it's somebody who they say has violated them in some way. In this case, it doesn't seem that she's claiming that this was a non-consensual relationship.
At all.
But but there's much more attention paid these days to these non-disclosure agreements and these settlements in which women are really locked in silence and will suffer financial consequences if they speak out.
Mm-hmm. Thank you both so much. Thanks for all your reporting
Thanks
as well.
for having us.
Hello, Today fans. Thanks for checking out our YouTube channel. Subscribe by clicking that button down there and click on any of the videos over here to watch the latest interviews, show highlights, and digital exclusives.